Hey everybody, what's going on? We got a special podcast today featuring my guy Tom Kendall. We go way back. We started playing high school sports way back when, but we went to school together in middle school. And I've had the privilege to play next to him as his left back, but also, just recently kind of growing up past life of high school and in college, I've had the privilege of kind of looking up to Tom as like a business person. So Tom, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to, and how we know each other, man.
Yeah, good intro. I'd say the last 8 years or so, which is pretty wild to
Yeah.
say, have been an adventure where Devin and I have stayed connected, but overall, still have those roots. But yeah, grew up playing sports together, playing soccer, going to school together, the recess football and stuff, which I was admittedly not very good at. But yeah, I think now I'm in Boston. I'm working for I started off as a startup company and sort of like a little bit of a risk there, but took it, flew with it. It's been an adventure, been a success, so it's been really fun.
Dude, so I know we can go way back with soccer, and I mean we've been through like playing next to each other. We've been through a lot of different things. I think as our class goes, I mean we were fortunate to win a state championship and then kind of get thrown into a D1 schedule. I mean, our class was sort of like the guinea pig class. So like, tell me like, what are some of your favorite like memories in the course of high school soccer, maybe middle school soccer, and sort of your journey through it all?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think that throughout throughout high school was pretty much, all the memories were insane and awesome, and we look back on them, and we had fortune on our side those freshman and
Yeah.
sophomore years, getting to look up to some of the best players that we played with, and guys that were able to take us through to a state championship, and like, I'd say like probably my favorite memory, especially on the soccer field, with club and with Springfield Soccer Club, and then fall ball with the group. I'd say, even through senior year and stuff, my favorite memory is probably just honestly those practices and just, grinding hard. At the time, it seemed like hell, and we're like running and running and running, but looking back at it now, it's like wouldn't give that up for anything. It's just so
I
much.
have to tell you, dude, I don't think I've been in better shape as far as conditioning goes.
Yeah,
Like those times we used to run, dude. Like I remember talking about it with Joe, and it's like we were in crazy condition. Like I can remember doing like it felt like 40, 20, 40s. Like we were doing Corey ladders. I mean, like but it was a struggle together. You know what I mean? So like from a soccer perspective, I mean, you got to play all over and play with some really elite players. Who's been like one of your favorite players to play with?
Honestly, I think that my freshman year, Anthony Dana was the center back. He was a big boy back there. He knew how to control the field, but he was big not only on the field, like size wise and atmosphere, but just like vocally.
Yeah.
That was huge to look up to. That he was everyone's pal at the end of the game. Like everyone knew he was a presence on the field, but he knew how to get people to move the right direction and to move the right way. And so I feel like that was, he's one of my favorite people to work with. When it came to, I looked up to him so much as a freshman, and feel like that carried over when I got older and I was a junior, senior. Getting those guys, those freshmen, sophomore, under your wing, and just bringing them in and making them feel like the same as what we felt when we were freshmen, and we could look up to those older players that took us under their wing, right?
Right, right. No, that's a good one. Like, I feel like there's some guys, I mean, there were so many good players, older players when we were younger, like that just slip under the radar. Like Jordan Vidum, I think is one of the ones for me. Like he was a short, compact, speedy guy. That's my textbook thing. Like I respect a short guy, and he was strong too, man. I mean, he was a crazy good soccer player. But like as far as games go, do you have like a favorite game in mind that was like lights out? Mine personally was your brother at Rutland on their senior night when we beat them in overtime, and I smelled the Applebee's from across the street. Like you could just smell it. And when that game was over, dude, I was so stoked because one, we won, and two, it was the longest game, it felt like. But that is one of mine. I don't know if you have one that's like
You picked my brain because actually that's my favorite game.
Yeah.
You know that I remember like playing against their keeper David. Like he was top New England goalkeeper, amazing.
So cocky.
Yeah, so cocky. And we were there on their senior night, and Petey took, like, I remember at one point in the game, Pete just kept, he's like younger, right? So he was a sophomore at the time. He wouldn't hold on to the ball. He was just passing to all the older guys and like passing the ball away. He didn't want to be the one that like screwed up that game. We're in like the first or second, I think we went into 2 overtimes.
Yeah, it was. It was a long game. I
Yeah.
remember that much, dude.
Yeah, for sure. I
Oh,
mean, John Michael got pulled out at that game. I think he was injured or something, but I pulled Petey aside. I was like, dude, you got to take the ball sometimes. Like, don't just give it away. Every one of us on the field, I feel like, was scared to make that mistake. And so we just passing balls, like, just took that one burst of confidence by Pete ripping the ball from, like, I don't know where it was. It felt like half field, but I'm sure.
I honestly, I think back now, and I think I like totally like space on it because I remember the ball. It wasn't in my mind. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember it being like the world's best shot. I think it slipped in my mind. It slipped underneath the keeper's, like it was a kind of like a bounce ball, and like the keeper went to come down on it, but he like missed it, and it went underneath his like body and then went in. Is how I vividly remember it, but it's been like almost 10 years now, so it's like hard to play it that far back. But that game was, I remember too, like looking at their senior like side, like they had all the senior posters, and it felt like they had like a whole like starting 12 and then some change of just seniors like listed against the fence, and I was like, is this real? Like you guys have this many seniors? But like our class, I feel like when we got challenged with that D1 schedule, that was a lot, man. Like coming off from like, you talk about our sophomore year, we won the state championship. That was big. Like that class, John's class was phenomenal. And then the year after also like still we had a lot of good athletes. So we still did pretty well. And then our class, I mean, we weren't bad by any means. I think we had a lot of talent for our class, but just being thrown into a big D1 schedule. And then you got kids like, do you remember in Burton, do you remember Raphael or that
I think Rafi, right?
Rafi, yeah, dude, he was unstoppable. Like I think we were winning at one point our senior year. I think it was 1-0 at home, and we ended up losing 2-1. That one stung. That one's probably for me. That one's probably the worst loss I personally can remember from soccer, just because like I wanted to beat them so bad, and like that one kid was just, he was unstoppable. And I think Jake Sargent man marking him. I can't remember all the details, but like wild game.
Yeah,
wild.
we had to go through a million different like practice schemes and game schemes before that. Like just I feel like it was every team, but especially that team, that Burton team was so good, and we just like went into our first game with them, and I feel like the second game we went into them, and we just had to like prepare 10 times extra to just, all right, this kid Rafi, we just have to put someone on in the entire game. And but the number of times we had to do that senior year of man mark a special player on the other team, because we got thrown, you're right, like we got thrown into that D1 schedule.
Yeah.
It was Johnny's class and the class above them that were absolutely incredible. And they just had this like streak of 4 to 6 years of just absolute dominance in D2 that we got screwed. And we're like, we still had to play the D1 schedule. We still had to play D2 playoffs, but we had to play D1 schedule. So we ended up with a terrible record. We ended up like a 9 seed in playoffs. Like we had to play the best.
Driving up to Montpelier. Yeah. I remember all that, dude.
Song too.
Oh God, that was. I feel like our senior year, like soccer just flew right by, man. Like it's crazy. You never expect it to come, and then when it's your final year, like you want so much for it, and then it's gone, man. Like it just in a blink of an eye. Like, and our streak with like senior games, like every year, I think we were in high school, the senior night. I don't remember a class winning their senior night. Like even your brothers, Johns, didn't win. They lost to Hartford. The year we played junior year, Mill River. It was Mill River. And we lost to them 3-2. And then our senior year, we lost to Brattleboro. Oh, got it. I think that,
Brattleboro always took us for a ride down.
dude.
That was a good. That was always a good team. They had
Yeah,
good.
dude. Yeah, dude. So I gotta ask. Speaking of prep, I gotta bring up Coach Churchill. Do you have either a favorite Coach Churchill like moment or a pep talk? Because that guy, like, loved Coach Churchill, but he was he was a man of either few words or saying something funny, or he had some great like teaching lessons that weren't always executed to the team. But what do you have any like special memories of Coach Churchill?
I have a couple. I'd say one is probably too inappropriate to tell. This was like one of those. I remember it was at Camp T-Lowicket, and I'm sure that's probably just that.
That's it. That's all you need to say.
Anyone that's that was a Springfield alum that was there at T-Lowicket with us, they know that. But yeah, I'd say the one that's more appropriate was him teaching us heading drills, and it was just the best thing ever. Like, he's showing us how to get up and throw your head through the windows is I think his technique that he taught us. But yeah,
I think one of my favorites was when we were standing. It was probably like 5 feet apart, right? And it was that drill where you just had to like get the one touch or get a nice touch on it, and you kick it as hard as you could to the other player. And I remember like he was like, I forget which player, he was like, Jeff, ball to the feet right now. And like somebody just railed it right at him, and his touch, man, was so bad it launched right off his foot and like way out. And he's like, okay, that but better. And I just like that stuck with me because like, you know, as a coach, like now having been a coach, like I totally get it. But Churchill, man, like had a great like coaching mind, execution sometimes. So enough about soccer. Like, you've had a journey since high school. So tell us, like, where have you been since then, man? I know you've been doing a lot, and a lot can happen in 8 years. So kind of give me since, you know, we graduated high school to now, basically, what have you been up to?
Yeah. So I ended up at Siena College. I spent my 4 years there. And you got to give a shout out to Siena right now. They won tonight, and they're into the semifinals, the MAC tournament. So big Siena basketball fan, and that's 10 games in a row right now, 10 wins. So hot team right now.
Wow.
But ended up there. I studied marketing, and then my junior year or so, they added an entrepreneurship minor. I loved it. I just jumped in. I dove in. I did whatever I could to get the classes in that so that I could minor in it. And I just like, that's where I found the passion. And my younger brother Pete and I, we started up a small clothing company. It really was sort of this fun dream that couple young people can do together. You know, you save up a little bit of money, you form an LLC. It's pretty easy. It's much easier than it sounds. With maybe it's the state of Vermont makes it easy for small business, but we scrapped together this idea and basically wanted to form our own our own experience, because in Vermont, not a ton of business experience you can get. I'm here in Boston now. I see these freshmen, sophomore in college coming in doing internships, and I couldn't even imagine that when we were freshmen and sophomore in college, going back to Vermont for the summers, like lifeguarding or coaching or whatever it might have been, which was awesome and definitely beneficial. But yeah, so we wanted to create this experience for ourselves and throw it on our resume and be able to have something. So we did that for a few years, and now it's sort of we've come away from it, just don't have the time. But when I graduated with that entrepreneurship background and that Siena the Stumble background, I figured let me get into Boston, let me get into a bigger city. I got here. My older brother John talked me into moving here. It's a great choice. And the first company that I got a job offer from happened to be a small startup company. And so I was really excited to get involved where I could actually, make an impact and help that drive of the company and help the direction of it. So that's been an experience on its own. You know, I've been at my company building engines now for 3.5 years.
Good
We
for
were
you.
outside the city, small sort of enclosed office space. If you've seen the movie, kind of office, all cubicles and funny shenanigans happening all the time. But now we're in a 32nd story in a downtown Boston building, gorgeous views, gorgeous office, open space with over 200 employees. We've acquired a few companies, so it's been a ride and a lot of
So
team.
I got to be honest with you too, man. Just from an outside perspective, I mean, I admire what you've been able to accomplish. I was supporting you guys through Stumble. I actually still have your shirts. I still love wearing that stuff, man, to be honest with you. I hope that it makes a comeback, to be honest. I would love to. This would be a great platform to, like, promote young business people like yourself or starters, entrepreneurs starting their businesses. We got guys like James Stillings, who's always trying to, get stuff going, and I love it because it takes a lot of work. It's not easy, especially getting to the startup and the grind. But like, what do you attribute to like your success, man? Because from an outside perspective, I'll be honest with you, like from our class, I think you're one of the most successful people in our class. So like, what do you attribute your success to? Like, how did you get to this point, and what motivates you, man?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. I'd say successful in business. I mean, I think, to each their own. I think
Yeah.
there are people in our class that are incredibly
Oh,
successful outside. I'm here. I'm in like the commercial business world, and so I'm happy to, I love that and appreciate that. I think that there's also, a ton of there's great teachers and people from our class too, and I can't take anything from them. So, but I'd say, to attribute anything, I'd say like, I think that it's honestly that Springfield, I think Springfield gave us a lot. Like, people look back at it and they love to, I feel like this is probably common, but young people especially love to look back at their hometown and sort of, and pick out the negatives. But I think there were so many positive things of growing up and like, what was the game that we used to play going from the middle school to the high school? What was that called? Stealth?
Yeah, something. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something like stealth, and I talk to all my coworkers now, and I talk to people where it's like they didn't get this was like across town. We had the police like stopping us and helping us out, pointing their flashlights into the bushes to help us get people out, and that's like there's something about that and something about growing up there that you can appreciate that. You can appreciate the grind that it took us. I think that we definitely are from like, I think Vermont has good education and such, but we're from a school and a time that we had great classes surrounding us. And we had a great class ourselves that was so competitive by nature with sports and education too. We were always trying to like beat the previous year's kneecap scores and test, standardized testing scores and stuff. That's pretty cool. I'd say I'd attribute, where I'm at today with that mentality of just that competitive nature that we grew up with,
Right.
whether it be sort of like recess or going for that state championship or just trying to make varsity versus junior varsity kind of a thing,
I think like I was just talking. I mean, me and Joe, obviously, we did a podcast once, and that championship mentality, I think, speaks for itself. Like that was soccer, but I think there's something that kind of like our class. We won Spirit Week. I think all 4 years we were in high school, man. So like our class, I feel like we're like in Vermont schools too. It's so funny. Like, and I'm sure you can relate, but going to like Massachusetts or a bigger college, people talk about their high schools and they're like, your whole entire high school of 450 people was my class size. So like coming from like a smaller school, more wholesome. I mean, you had to really come outside the box and think of things to do. You know what I mean? Like stealth, that was like something to entertain us, or like doing something kind of wild and crazy, or like just to entertain you in Vermont is like a challenge. So it's like, you always have to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
Looking at town now, what are your feelings? I mean, like obviously Springfield is trying to do a lot to renovate what it was. I think our class, we were young enough to see some of the good things, and then it kind of switched when we were about, I would say when we were a little younger than teenagers, into high school. We really saw kind of I would say the low point of really Springfield. And it feels like, they are trying to bring things back up. But what are your thoughts now on seeing what's happening around town?
Yeah, I mean, I think that every time I'm back, I have a blast because we see those same people. I hear about things in the news and such, and I know that it's been a struggle. I think especially with business and in terms of a commercial aspect of Springfield, I just don't know if the industry is there right now, and I think it's coming back. I think there is a positive to it that it's driving back that way, and hopefully we're going to see a turnaround. But I think that right now it's sort of, I think, this gem that's sort of in the rough right now, and it's being polished by some, and across town that are really keeping it healthy and trying to promote really great things. You see downtown sort of changing all the time when we're home, renovations of buildings, trying to bring industry into downtown and make it to make it a fun, awesome atmosphere. I think that it has a lot to do with the families in town, and I think it says a lot that a lot of our class, a lot of our generation is sort of moving out. At least the people that would bring a really cool vibe to the town, right? I think that yourself, myself, some of the people in our class, some of the people in our surrounding classes, if we had decided that we were going to take the sort of difficult task on, I think what we're doing is when I moved to Boston, I think I'm sort of taking the easy way out. I'm going to a place where they've already established this really successful mentality, and we can ignore the issues. In Springfield, it's so much smaller; it's impossible to ignore the issues. And I think we need more people like ourselves to see that gem in the rough and sort of go back and sort of continue to polish it. I think eventually, we're going to get there with more and more of this sort of work from home ability. I think there's going to be a lot more companies that see, the $500 or $300 per square foot that people are paying for commercial space in Manhattan, and say, we could get that same space, but a lot cooler and no traffic commute, and everyone could have a car and a house and a yard in Vermont for, $1 per square foot and renovate an entire building. I think that we're going to see more of that. I think Springfield is starting to see that, and there's been a lot of push to do that. But no, you're right. There's been a difficult transition, and especially when it comes to athletics. I don't think there's the same push. When we were young, our parents and our siblings and the class above us was like this real push and this real.
I feel like there's a lot of prestige and honor that used to come with playing and putting that, the Cosmos jersey on. And and as a coach, when I was coaching there for a little bit, I mean, it didn't lose its edge. I think the roots in which, your dad and other parents were really guiding the kids at a younger age, working with Parks and Rec about soccer it's kind of lost its touch. I think sports as a whole, though, are just in a different place. I think it's more than, video games are now a thing. Cell phones are there. We didn't have Snapchat or really Instagram when we were in high school. And thinking about it, that really came into fruition when we were in college. So these are all new things that kind of mask those opportunities now. I mean, it's another hurdle you have to kind of get through with kids. And now, the excuse for jobs too is another thing that always came up, that, trying to recruit kids to come out. I mean, people wanted to work. I don't know if there's really a formula for it, and it's weird to say it. And I just don't know if it's the times or where we're at, or Vermont as a location is, not there's the last class that I coached had a group of their class as a whole they graduated 69 kids. And I think we graduated with around 95. So that's a drop of almost 30 kids too. So the number of kids going to school there seems to have dropped. But that's crazy too, because you would be amazed at how many programs like field hockey and soccer and other schools are dropping programs there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sad to see you'll talk to teams from, or high schools like Otter Valley, and, John Williams, who is an alumni of Springfield, who now coaches at Otter Valley, is like, I'm struggling to get kids out. It's a problem across the board in the state. So it's interesting to kind of, see it. And then also Springfield, again, from a business perspective, you're talking about people like ourselves moving away. And I just recently moved away, and you're absolutely right. Like, instead of trying to think of, but it's a hard, in some cases, it's harder to start something in that area as a young business person. There are people who have done it and are doing a phenomenal job, like the guys at Trout. You talk about, the Copper Fox is a great, up and coming restaurant. They're doing great things. They serve great food, great beer. But there's just not enough there. Maybe it's the fact that when we go to college now, college is like, it seems like outrageous. Like, that's the reason I went back to Vermont, was like trying to find a place to live, making a reasonable income. Those two things don't make a lot of sense. And there are some really good people that are still in that area that I think are still going to make some really good changes for it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, trying to get somebody to start something there is going to be pretty tough. So tell me, like, just quickly, like, what are your thoughts on something that could change the business side for Springfield?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know of one single thing. I think it's, it's really just that mentality of, it's giving, I think it's giving the town and the area a chance. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I really do feel like, moving to a large city like Boston, like I did, was sort of the easier option of the two. I felt like there were more options here. There's more industry. There's more of an ability to sort of take that corporate ladder, which is, that was my goal, is take that corporate ladder. I didn't see myself being able to do that at home. And so, I think that's maybe more people's mentality, because it's more people's thoughts in terms of, they think that's what we're being told is the only way to be successful. Meanwhile, electricians, plumbers, they're making more money than anyone our age, and they're more successful. They own their own business by the time they're 30, and they can expand. But there's no one sort of arguing for that side of things. There's no one standing up and saying, you hear everyone say that you hear everyone in sort of media in our age, and anyone honestly, saying that you need a college education to be successful. And I think there's a lot of people we know that went into trades that are extremely successful.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's more of, it's like a change in mentality in that way, change in mentality in sports. And I think sports are extremely important to, driving success, to being competitive, being successful. So I think it's just a change in mentality sort of drives that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit with some fun questions. Now, if you don't know Tom, he's got 3 other brothers, the Kendall boys, and you guys are all pretty close in age, all pretty much 2 years apart, right? For the most part.
Yep.
So I just have some fun questions. If you know the Kendall boys, it's going to be a fun round of games, but I just, as they come out, let's hear these answers. So first question about the Kendall boys. From Tom's perspective, out of the 4 of you, Tom, who has got the best hair?
I think I do.
Who's second?
Second? That's tough. I'd say probably John.
Okay. Out of the 4 of you, who was the better soccer player?
I think Pete's the best soccer player.
Oh, okay. The
Like,
young one?
He had to learn it from somewhere. He had to compete with us. So
That's true. Yeah, you had all those lessons to learn from you guys.
Yeah.
All right. So in the house, who is the funniest brother?
So I feel like there's a couple answers to that. I think, if you think of in terms of like telling a joke and knowing how it lands, Dan is logical and he's good at telling him. He knows how to present them. Peter is funny in terms of the way he tells jokes because he always has to repeat and explain why the answer is funny, and that in itself is really funny.
Yeah.
And then John is just he's just like wild. So he's the funniest, like he's just the most entertaining, funniest person to be around because he just is always going to do something that's funny.
Who's always getting ragged on? I got to know, like growing up in the house, who was getting ragged on the most?
Pete, I think Pete.
Pete's just getting all the force. All right. So in the house, obviously we got the parents. Who is the favorite child? Would you say out of the four of you, who was like the golden child?
Yeah. Well, I'd say like Dan's a golden child. Dan did everything perfectly. He's like straight edge, perfect, never makes mistakes. I'd still say I'm the favorite though.
Okay.
I always got the most presents at Christmas, and I always got the trips that were fun. So I feel like I got a little special treatment, but I don't know if that's because I was the favorite because I remember him the most fondly. You know?
Okay. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit from the four of you.
Yeah.
Now I got to bring up your dad because he was the soccer coach, right, for us, and he was notorious for being a goofball, being funny at times, lightening the mood for us. And he's a costume guy. Like he was always into Halloween. I still see him doing stuff. What has been the best costume he's ever worn in your opinion?
Oh, I don't know. I that's hard to say. That's hard.
That's hard. There's
Yeah.
been some good ones. I feel like I've seen the Oompa Loompa one this year was pretty spot on.
Yeah.
But he's notorious for costumes, man. He's a legend. You don't have anyone that you can think of?
I'd say the only one is when we were real little, we were all the Ghostbusters. My brothers and I were all matching Ghostbusters, and my dad was the State Puff. He was the State Puff Marshmallow Man, and that's from the Ghostbusters movie. So he was a member of sort of the team and crew, and I guess he was walking down the street in Springfield and someone called him the Pillsbury Doughboy instead. And he stated back in like a funny voice that he wasn't. He was the State Puff Marshmallow Man. And the guy pushed him over. And so he needed help getting back up because he had this big fluffy costume on. So like for me, the most fond, funny memory of his costumes, that's gotta be it.
All right. Last two questions. Who's the loudest of the four brothers? Who's the loudest?
Yeah, without a doubt, that's John.
That's John.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. For the ladies, who is the best looking Kendall boy? Go. Obviously you. That's it.
No, I'd say best looking. I think I don't even know. I think I don't know. It's yet to come. I think it's either my dad or it'll be,
Oh,
here we go. My dad.
yeah, that's where it all starts anyways. That's a fair response. You can't. That's it.
Combination of all of us. So.
That's it. Well, Tom, I just want to thank you, first of all, for being on here, man. It's been a pleasure catching up with you. Again, really stoked for you and all the things that you're doing in the business world. I definitely look up to you and what you've been doing. Definitely motivating me as a young business person as well. It's been a pleasure catching up with you. And now that we're close by, I hope that we can get together at some point and, catch up more in person as well. So thanks for being on. It's been a great episode. So until next time, guys, we'll see you soon. And thanks a bunch, Tom.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Devin.
Yep.
All right.